I'll do this quickly. It's just strange how we see each other and how we observe and how we observe. And I guess my thoughts, age. I've been working out for about 3 months. Do 10 rounds a day. Maybe some treadmill work, a weight work. Got some things coming up I have to be in shape for. Okay? Thursday, I arrived with a picture. Walking towards baggage claim about 30 yards away. And something was going on to the side as I was walking, and I turned and started watching that while I was watching, and these soles of my feet and stuff on their little feet, and I was flying and fell right in the middle of the damn airport. So I hurt my knee, and it's been bugging the heck out of me ever since. That's been through all the emergency room. We're still trying to see what I can not broken again, but it's in a lot of pain right now. But I'm getting through it. Anyway, I told a few people, I said, listen, it wasn't anything, but we're not paying attention, and my foot got stuck, and I fell. I got people telling me, well, when you get old, it had nothing to do with age. Nothing. But you pursue. And age is the fact as deadly and as sinful as racism and sexism and all the rest of it. And it really is. Because I'm ashamed. I know this guy's in the 40s, but I'm sparring. I'm in shape. Yeah. So somebody will assume that because I'm older, that I was dribbling out of my mouth and I was standing out and I fell and tripped and I should be able to no. That wasn't the case for me. And so that wasn't the story. But anyway, let's go back to that question now. I just want to clear that up tonight. Yeah. Spread that around.
And one thing about that too is people, as we get older, I think we realize that those people that we saw as older when we were younger, if we see them a certain way, and then we realize as we get older, we're still the same people. Yeah. It's just the body doesn't always work the same way. Yeah. And people assume Mr. Fisher is certain things and allow us to work like that.
Hey,
absolutely.
I'm working good. Until then. So anyway, you're gonna ask about.
I was just gonna start getting some minutes.
Yeah. So my first time right. I was doing off Broadway in Foree, and I was very new to acting. I probably had 3 or 4 plays under my belt at the time, and I was backstage preparing some other actors to go on much of the local Tom's Cabin, the WBA Theater in the East Village. And it's a hotbed for off-Broadway. The mom runs around Trucking Warehouse. There's a lot of great theaters. Joe Papp's Theater was at one of them. And so, a guy was sitting next to me, his name was Bob Carpenter. And he was, may rest in peace, and say, Ken, they're auditioning someone in Midtown, and there's a role that you might fit. You want to try out for it? I got the address. And I said, well, why not? So I took the address, went up to, at that point, was Richard Rubenstein's and George Romero's office. I recognized the poster of Night of the Living Dead on the wall, framed poster, race ahead. I said, I know these films. I said, they look at the Living Dead, they look like William Jones, very versatile. So I auditioned with Gaylen Scott and David M. And it was a nice audition. You know, I felt good about the audition. I felt good about the chemistry we seemed to have. And it worked very well. And I was called back a week later and auditioned with 3 other people. And not so much the same. Now when I look back on it, I can tell, you know, the sign wasn't the same. And shortly after that, I got the call that I had the part, and we were going to Pittsburgh, and I got a script, and I was a member of SAG, because I just finished being a long traveling on the motorcades, and Kojak, and I said, oh God, you know, this is a problem. And I looked at the script and I said, oh no, I have no problem. This is number play Wong. They won't let it in the country. This is so violent. That's funny. Little did I know. The rest of the story I'll tell you later. How I got called before SAG, came out, and that kind of thing, what happened with that. That's how it started. That's how I got involved in this project. That's how the things went for people here. And that's how, that's what happened this mall.
I do have one question before we go to Gaylen. You mentioned the SAG. Was there anything to do with the SAG at the time about writing films? Because I know when Dawn came out, that was a huge issue.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Before that, they were, well, there was I was in New York, and there was a big to do, and I noticed that, I'm not going to say why, they had porno films coming out. Sure. It was successful.
Yeah, they rated films for the
They didn't know, the one with Marilyn Chambers was a great one. Behind the Great Door, these things came out, just hit like wildfire, especially Deep Throat. I mean, people in on the Upper East Side, and their Minks and their Gucci's and their, you know, the fine persons and everything, they were in the theaters, a nice theater, and they were watching Deep Throat. And yeah, it was crazy. It was wild those days. So, and there was a lot about being X-rated and being bad and that kind of thing. And then we, because we had a hard time, which I thought I would. And I think that George and Richard have this fight trying to get East here in this country, but also being creative.
And newspapers at the time, you couldn't advertise in regular syndicated newspapers by writing films.
That's right.
There was a lot of artists.
That's right. Marilyn Chambers was the Irish showgirl. You won't realize this, but she was as close to being a school teacher, mom, the purest woman in the world, that I wish to know. Right? She came up with one of the greatest sexual films ever made, and adult films, and so everyone was on set. This beautiful, wonderful woman that you would adore, and thought she was the cream of an Anglo-Saxon beautiful woman and bearer of children. She was now doing what you know, I'm going to say it here too. It was all over the place. They were on every newscast. Everyone was talking about it. They were let down. I was surprised Marilyn got to work anymore. As a matter of fact, it took a long time before she did anything outside of central work after that.
True. See, 10 minutes in and we're already talking about porn. So we're going to move it on a little bit. So, same question if you don't mind.
What's the question?
Strangely enough, not bad.
Just sex worker?
So we have a lot of first timers. So,
Can you hear me? Yeah? Can you hear me from back? Yeah?
so I was going to start at the beginning for a lot of these people that haven't had the opportunity to hear these stories. It's new to them. And I was just wondering if you could go over how you got involved with George. Just start at the beginning.
Well, I knew nothing about George. I knew nothing about Not in the Living Dead. I knew nothing about zombies. I knew absolutely nothing. And somebody said, a friend of mine in an action class said, oh, they're looking for blondes. So go up there. So then I started to hear that this was somehow about horror. So I had a monologue, we should do a monologue for an audition. And I decided to change it a little bit. And it was a monologue. And much later on, I thanked the playwright. He was a very conservative playwright. I said, you got me this part. He didn't know. And the monologue said, you know, what happens? Well, how do you feel safe? The question was, I'm talking and my friend leaves the street and he says, do you feel safe? And the monologue goes on, what do you mean by safe? And he says, well, safe. And then this tragic accident happens and he's run over by a car. So George, and when I finished, stopped and said, oh, I'm so sorry for your friend. You just came from your friend who died? I said, no, George, I was acting. So he actually got scared. So I think he remembered that audition because it scared him. And that helped me the part. So I ended up, I was very new to acting, and I met Scott and Ken. I think we all sat and had popcorn watching Night of the Living Dead. I think that was our first meeting, and I went, oh my God, this is what I'm doing. So that was great.
That was my next question. What George was filming.
Not at all. The only thing I said to George was, I said, listen, I'll do this film, but I'm not screaming. I'm not screaming, and you have to make me do something. I can't just stand by and, let the guys end up being the heroes, and she's the victim, or the frail, female. And I said, that's my deal. He said, okay, that's the deal. You don't have to scream.
There were some lines in the script that actually talked to when he was finished the work in about the guy's not doing it. There were some great lines in the script pointing that out.
Yeah, well, that actually happened in the middle. We were filming, and I said, George, I think he needs to strengthen up the script a little bit for the woman. And he said, okay. And that's when it came back. He ended up while we were filming. And he wrote the lines so I come in, I would have made you all breakfast, but I don't have my pots and pans. And I go, yeah. George wrote that on the spot. He decided that we needed to do that. And that's when I said, as the guys were doing their eye rolls, I learned how to fly that helicopter and don't leave me without a gun. And that was a big moment because women at the time, I think you would remember Sigourney and Aliens and then the Hamilton doing Terminator. They were all like the year after. So this was a real beginning of George having the foresight to say that, the female has to be as strong as the men. And he did it.
Scott? Hi. Do the same question for all the first timers. How did you get involved on the film?
Well, hi there, everybody. Thank you for coming to the film, please. It's pretty awesome. When you make that film, you don't think that 50 years later it's still going to be going on. You don't even look in your mind. So this is pretty amazing. Somebody's made that. She was.
How you doing? Turn it off. I don't think they can hear it. You can't hear us?
Turn it up.
Can you hear? Are we just saying hello?
Say hello to me. Me? Yes. How you doing?
Yeah.
Come see me later. Yeah. So we'll finish with this. What's up, man?
Oh, it's okay, no problem. So you want to know how I got involved?
Yes, please. And we're gonna see if you can do the whole story this time.
I'll do my best.
No waving. No waving.
So I was in New York. I was born there.
It's gotta get here. Yes, a little closer.
But being, is that better? Can you hear me that good? Hello? Hello? They said they
Is this any better?
Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah. Good.
I actually was recommended to George by Christine Farley, who was at Christine Farley before she got married. She and I were in the theater department at college together. And then so she suggested me to George. And then they sent me this agreement. And I went, oh my God, this is the most disgusting bloody thing I've ever read in my life. And so I went to audition for Roger. And I had like 3 scenes, I think. And George was just sitting there looking at me, I'm nodding. And he's going, oh, I really like you too. I said, well, thanks, George. He said, yeah. He said, George, I hear a butt in your voice. What's the butt? And he said, well, if you do the role, you're going to be paired up with this guy who's twice your size. I didn't know Kenny did it. And so I said to George, it just came out of my mouth, I said, George, the audience won't give a shit about that in the first 5 minutes, and they'll just forget about it. And he laughed and went on. We did 2 little scenes, and that went well. Then I called back a week later, and we did the same scene as close enough the scene. And that felt good. I felt good about it. I went to George and I said, George, what's your hesitation? Don't ask me why. Popped out of my mouth. He said, well, I really like what you're doing. I said, well, what's the butt? He said, well, your take on the character is not quite what I saw. He said, I saw this kind of rough-hewn guy like Nick Nolte and kind of rough-hewn streetwise cop. He said, oh, well, you hired me, you just got me, so I can't do anything about that. And then ultimately, he was satisfied, and I saw him that night, and he said, okay, you got the part. You know, I talked to Richard, I did. And that's how it happened. Basically, and then I met Penny, and I met David and Lee. We all read together, and here we are 15 years later.
And speaking of David, he was the one guy in the main cast that was actually in the military.
That's
and
right.
The one guy that couldn't handle a gun on screen.
Exactly right.
Perfect.
Yeah, he was in the military, and you know, the movie was like this big lonely. I always thought it was a weird irony. And he and I were like, the one thing about David was we laughed a lot about the movie, about ourselves. We go and have a drink afterwards, and we just laughed a lot. I just didn't.
So, in the original script, everybody. What?
Yeah.
At what point in shooting, because I know there was some stuff filmed, at what point did George flip the script on that? Say, you know what? You guys are gonna make it out.
And I think he changed his mind at the very end. Did you hear me? Yeah. Because we filmed the death scene. I was supposed to stick my head in the helicopter, and Sabini made a head for me that was supposed to sever off. And then Peter was supposed to, you had the gun. You were about to shoot your head. And then I think the idea was that was just, George decided in post that was just too depressing. I mean, we all died, so we had an alternate ending anyways. That was, we would fly off. I think Sabini ended up using the head somewhere else. Ended up in the mall blowing up or something. You know, he didn't waste the head. But I don't know that they ever found the footage of where I died. But I did.
Moral of the story, don't waste it.
Yeah, George and I had a talk just before the shot. Last scene, you know, I still, we couldn't have done to my head. And, you know, I said, horrible. And he said, yeah. So we kind of talked over that. It's the only time thing I remember about it was when we had that discussion before I said, I said, oh. So I don't know how the other parts, because I didn't see Gaylen's, whatever, and I think they used that head for Wooly.
Yeah.
For Wooly, so they blew his head off. And so it may have been that it works before he talked to me and then just didn't tell me. Probably so. We had that conversation because I was prepared to get suicide. I mean, everybody dies in this movie?
Yeah.
Nobody's living?
Just the song.
He said, no. You do it right.
So that head was the first time I met Tom Savini, so I flew to Pittsburgh a few weeks ahead of when we began shooting. And Tom said, okay, I'm going to make you a head, and you're going to be in this cast, and then you put the latex over your head, and then it's supposed to, and it's all over your head, and over your mouth, and then your eyes. And then he said, oh, it's going to be fine, just sit there. So I sat there for like 30 minutes, as long as he told me, and then he said, you know what, I can't get it off. So it was the first head he made, and it was me. So this was an experiment. So it was like, that was my first meeting with Tom. It took us like a couple of hours to get the head off of it, and I was, welcome, Tom Savini.
So, can you guys talk a little bit about George's process and how fast the setups were? Were there a lot of takes, or was everything pretty quick?
It was quick. You know, we had a tight schedule. We had a lot to shoot, and luckily we were inexperienced, but certainly I guess committed. One take, 2 takes at the most, and that was it.
So you guys covered and moved on.
Yeah, it was, and if there was a problem, usually it was on the technical side, somebody moved, an extra moved, or something was like, I remember the time we were, I think, Scott and Gaylen, just as we were Hollywood bodies and other followers to put in the freezer. And they had, you know, something went wrong. And so they had like 2 trolleys, big, you know, I'm riding the trolleys on, you guys know what we make of this. Those people were piled on top of each other. And they were 4 high. And we were over in the corner having a conference. And I looked back and I said, after about, we were there 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, the time was looking, looked like I said, oh, what? Get off! Get off! And, you know, but it's usually something technical. You're always on one point. And what very well, right now, say that? Say that? On the move fast.
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely correct. George was very efficient. That's one thing a lot of it. He trusted his actors, and yelled, he very quickly. Never felt rushed, never felt hurried, because George was very relaxed, right? And he was relatively calm, and if he had a lot of stress, he didn't spread it to people around him. Yeah. So yeah, we moved fast. So you had to make a decision and commit to it. It wasn't time. Well, it was funny, we didn't feel much. Did you? Did you feel rushed?
No, not at all. No. It was ready, set, go, and action. We were there. It was scene after scene. We moved to the next one, and each one was exciting, new, adventurous for us. So we were really stoked up to just, you know, the next scene and move on. What else we're going to discover? What we're going to see? Especially, you know, like the zombies. The zombies. I'll let Gaylen, what would you tell them about the zombie with the swimming suit?
Zombie with the swimming suit.
So
I wasn't
the one with the swimming suit that
Oh, I wasn't there when they were filming.
you weren't? No.
Well, I had the zombie with the nun zombie was behind the scene.
You didn't have this guy. Remember he was out in the parking lot.
I know, but I
You weren't
wasn't
there?
there.
No.
I had the nun, and that was when the
Scott
nun,
remembers and he'll tell the secret.
the nun was when she was caught in his door, and she got out because I had to shut the door, and then I said, you know, I need to shoot her, and George said, no, she's a nun. I said, I know that she's dead. He goes, I know, but she's a nun. You know, so let her go, and he let the nun go. I mean, she's here, you know. Yeah, but the Hare Krishna was okay if I slapped him.
Who wants incense?
I don't know.
You know, when earlier today when we came home with the men's zombie, and she was going on about, he just wanted to kill me. She's like, shoot her, burn her.
I know. Well, George is great now. You know, if you saw Martin and all, you know that he played a priest, a little alcoholic, but he was a priest, right? And he, you know, he has a certain respect for that.
That's the guy in the pool? Yeah, the guy in the pool. Oh, in the fountain. Yeah, that guy.
The next day, falls and fill out everything.
Yeah, he's out there, he's like naked. Almost. He's outside, he's naked.
Yeah.
Almost naked. Yeah. I remember seeing him and, you know, what the hell is he doing? But he was fine. I think he was happy to be almost naked. It was like really cool.
It was freezing.
Yeah, freezing, right. And when he fell in the fountain of the water, he bounced like a ball. Whoa. I looked at him and went, man, "You're gonna hurt yourself." And he got right up out of there, and he was fine. You know, with all that weight just pushing his ball.
And we tried to tell him, we said, look, why don't you come in for a moment, get warm, you know, that kind of. And it was absolutely freezing out there. Yeah. And he would not come in. He would not. He said, "No, I'm a zombie. I'm never be a zombie. I'm not gonna move. I got my place. I'm good."
You guys
He's
hear
turning blue.
I guess you're gonna have to.
Oh, yeah. Couldn't hear me? He was turning blue. And it was, you know, we offered to, so sorry for him. Because I think it was the day before, it was a mild temperature. And so it wasn't so bad. The next day it got so damn cold, he was out there just, come on, why don't you come in for a minute? No, I'm a zombie, my space, my place. And I always use that as a testament to the living of the people who were zombies in this film. They really brought it to the place.
Again, I know we have a lot of first timers here, and a lot of people that just may have questions. So we're going to do a few questions from you guys if you'd like, but if you would, so we can hear you, if you come up here, that way it's going to work a lot better. Not this guy.
Come on up.
You're very.
Yeah, question.
Go ahead.
I had a question for you about
The mic.
Where's the mic down?
Not a mic down. Tell you what.
That's this one that works.
I was watching the movie last night in the theater, which was an amazing experience, getting to see everyone on the big screen like that. And I was really struck by the ending of the film, you know, when your character has to make a decision whether or not you're going to take yourself out. And I wondered maybe what your thoughts were when you were shooting that as to why Peter made that decision at the last moment to keep fighting and to continue on. Do you remember sort of what your thoughts were at the time of filming that scene? Because there were going to be some changes, and you had said you wanted to just mention that decided that they would change it.
So how method were you?
I made a quick decision. What's going to motivate me to not commit suicide and fight. And you know, sometimes you get very lucky and you can, I don't know, you pull something out of your bag of tricks and you find something quickly to meet the challenge. And there was a time in my life when I was a young boy, and there were a couple of kids who were bigger, much bigger than I, and they did some pretty awful things, said some pretty awful things. And I couldn't find a brick or pipe to hit these guys. And I prayed to God, please let me find something to hit this guy. What they said was pretty horrific, and I really didn't want to go. I really wanted to get these guys. And when I thought of that bell, immediately I said, I'm going to get this son of a bitches. And that put me on the right frame of mind to say, no, I'm going to fight, continue on and fight for this. So that, it just one of those things I think the right motivational thought, and it carried me through. Answer your question again? Will?
Got another thing right here.
Yeah, sure.
Over the years, one's perspective on experience can maybe change. You may remember something that you forgot. You may form a new opinion about your experience. Has there been anything over the past couple decades that you remember or you have come to have a new understanding of the whole experience that we had?
But this is said last night someone said this, and they were very eloquent, and we never really addressed it. But I never knew how important it was for me to survive a horror film as an African American. I knew Dwayne Jones, I knew we were very close. Not very close, but close. I saw him a lot, and talked. And so I knew that he survived. But I didn't quite, I just survived. I didn't think, and much to what I feel is where we should be. Didn't matter who color the person was, he survived, period, so human being survived. Color meant nothing. But to people, the general public, African American, white, other, it was a big deal. And it took me a long time to come to, to really accept that or to realize that it meant so much to so many people. It was such a tribute important to so many people in both races. That I survived meant so much. And I thought, okay, I'm playing this guy. He survives, he fights his way through, he's made it. Okay, but I didn't put the color in it. And then the people started stopping in airports, 7-Eleven, wherever. And I said, you know what? You survived. You see the little black guy in the first three pages. Survived. That's it. But just let me end with this. So I thought this the other night. Can I think something? This is so good to what he said. That if I was going to think the guy that's on Saint Agnes or something. He was on Living Color. You see him in a lot of stuff. Eddie Murphy movies. He's a very funny guy. He's on that. He did the doctor on that Saint Agnes and Saint Agnes. And it's a little series or something. You guys know something about it. Anyway, he was being interviewed. And he said that his mother, when he was a little boy, they had a commercial with a half of a black actress sing half her face. And so mother called and said, hey, it's a black woman on TV. It's a black woman on TV. Half her face now. Then other people called and everybody, so everybody had to get to the television and say, hey, look, lady, you can see this black woman on TV. And he was with his daughter recently and was somewhere on some media, and he pointed out black person on TV, on acting or doing something, and she said, this is a person on television. And he said, that was the change that we've been waiting for. That was the change we've been waiting for. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, amazing. I mean, I think that for all of us, when we were doing the film, this was a horror film, and the way it was received initially was like, oh, it was horror, and I think we were not considered real. This was not a real part of a real film, because it was horror. Theatrical agents would look at it. I said I would give them clips from the film without the blood. No, we don't want to see it. We don't want to see it. And then little by little, with Roger Ebert and other people who started to elevate the film into something else. And then, with for me, the big difference is that you look at the decades and what has happened with this film and how much it has changed and informed so many directors and films. Fast zombies, slow zombies, horror. I mean, and it's been amazing that generation, people who were hardly born, the grandchildren of people who saw the film, are now fans of this film that has lived on. So many films go away, they disappear. This film, I mean, look at you all. I mean, this film has something that is beyond others. And you know, it's, the other thing that's amazing is that you look at the directors, Quentin Tarantino and other people that talk about George as their mentors, people that informed them. And we look at the horror films now, and who's directing the horror films but women? Which is amazing. The whole thing is completely around. And you can look at so many of these horror films, and now they have women. It's pretty incredible. That's the change. Absolutely.
I'm curious about you. And so, apart from the obvious gore and all of that stuff, and the what is it about this film? This is not a mysterious question, I mean, honestly, that has hooked you into the film as being like dedicated to this movie. What is it? Tell me. I'm curious.
The three of you?
As a fan, if I may answer very briefly, at least me, it hit at the right time. You know, I was the right age, and I've said this before. It's like watching Starsky and Hutch in hell. And but it's a perfect capsule of time. It definitely shows its age, and it shows an age, but it doesn't feel aged. You know, there's a lot of films that you'll go back and watch, and they're hard to feel accessible because they're so antiquated in certain ways. And the dialogue, the dynamic with you guys, it's all so fresh. Is that a fair answer? Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Thought?
I want to say something.
Somebody will live.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I just think that it's a combination of all the various elements, because you've got action, you've got very well written characters, you've got great dialogue, you've got great location of the mall. You know, that's just the elevation from the first Night of the Dead to Dawn of the Dead being so much more epic in scale. It's just the convergence of so many wonderful elements that just came together to create a form of the perfect horror movie.
I'll tell you something. One of the things that really helped this film, and Gaylen touched on it just slightly, they had 5 major networks and film critics. Everyone tuned in at 6 o'clock in the evening to one of those networks. You hear Gene Shalit, who just died. Yeah, the Humphrey. Rex Reed, Robert Barrett, Cisco and Ebert, and there's one more I can't get, but it's another one or something. There were 5 of them, and all 5 gave this film a thumbs up. Go see it. It's really, really good. They said they would never go see it again. But they said for the people who love this kind of movie, it's for you. And that really, you know, pushed people who maybe would have not seen it, not would have been curious, would have passed by it. That kind of gave it that you know, gave it I guess the yeah, whatever, I can't get no word, whatever. It solidified that this film was okay, people go see it, you should go see it, and it went to every person in every strata in this country, and they all saw it. So people were not going to see it, but when passed it by, they said, okay, we'll go see it. Or we'll go see it in something. It was a film. You remember that it went to Fifth Avenue to that press conference, and they were all there. Cisco, they were Rex Rigg or Barrett, they were all there.
A lot of the press came and they were the press junket and they were dressed up as zombies. So some of the zombies were press. I mean, they had a great time. But I think the only thing that was really the change that I thought about for me is how prophetic, how George saw into the future. I mean, when you think about the humanity, who was human and who had humanity in that mall? And what happens when greed overtakes things? I mean, the zombies they couldn't help themselves. But the bikers who ended up destroying things and destroying the little civilization that the four of us have. I mean, George was talking about something that really, we can look at today. And it resonates. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Now it's Walmart.
Now it's worldwide.
Now it's Walmart. I'm talking about like how it was getting taken apart by the virus. Now it's getting taken apart by Walmart. See, all encompassing.
Morrissey has a question.
So what was it like doing the scenes inside the television station? I worked at Fox 3 overnight for 3.5 years, and I've always wondered what that experience was like.
Well, with the television station, was shot separately, so that Richard Francis, that scene was shot between them, and then we were just the reaction. So we weren't actually seeing anything. We were at the camera. But there are some interesting things about that. It resonated for me the most during the COVID period. Because when people were talking about conspiracies and then people were throwing things at the television, at newscasters, and they didn't like this kind of news. And that was pretty amazing. But I mean, we were there and, with the cameras and those guys were acting it out, and I've seen it live in other ways on television now.
We've got time. We're going to do one more. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we can squeeze two. Yellow.
First, I just want to say what a pleasure it is to meet you guys. Dawn of the Dead was my dad's favorite movie. He saw it back in 1978 and down in Fort Lauderdale where I'm from. Rated X, 12 a.m. showing, and then he shared it with me, much like probably most of the audience was passed down. So just such an honor. My question is, how has this movie impacted each of your lives, in both positive and maybe negatively? And in addition, where was the project scene filmed? Was it actually filmed at the projects here, or was it all a movie set? Oh, and one last thing to answer your question, Scott. The movie personally affected me. You guys were the coolest, badass SWAT cops. And that personally made me want to have an interest in joining law enforcement. I'm currently in the academy, for better or for worse, but thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
You got it.
How it changed?
Project.
He said how people would change this. Good or bad. When it came out, go ahead.
how the movie changed us? Is that what you really?
No, change you. Yeah, how they ended the movie.
Yeah, got it. I don't know if it changed me. I think that I have a deep appreciation of Romero because of how he handled it. I got to know him really well. He ran his family, and a friend of his wife, friend of his daughter, and his daughter, and my daughter had the exact same birthday. And so there were all these connections, you know. It was basically, it hasn't really changed me, but it made me appreciate the experience of working with him. It was a very positive experience. And I look at it, you know, sometimes you wish that directors who are micromanagers, right? It doesn't work too well when you try to micromanage an actor. As it closes their space, closes their sense of intuition, closes their sense of instinct. George was the opposite. He was about, go, letting you go. Find your way to this particular moment, in this particular role. And so you felt really supported. And he was really kind. He was a kind human being. You know, he wasn't just some Hollywood nasty, you know, money global guy. He says, you know, and he was a very social politics, obviously, you know. But he, you know, you heard so many people. He was a really decent human being. And that's the bottom of it, you know. And so that is what it takes away to the our spirits together and working into the atmosphere of what he gave to us. It was good. You know, I'm a director myself. And I think about it, you know, how he gave us, you know, so fast. I'm no better.
And he also wanted to know about shooting the project sequence.
Oh, the project here. Yeah, that was in the building. I remember the building. I remember it was cold as hell. Yeah. I remember the first thing we did was at the cage, we were beating each other. Yeah. And they called us down and said, and I tell you the story. George was standing to the side. He was just gross. You know, we zombies were eating baby. And I said to George, remember he was like this, and I said to George, this is disgusting. And he looked at me and he grinned, he went, yeah, I know. So I didn't really feel the humor in the script to it. I see what's going on, you know, and then that started to really surface to me. And that's how I know that the humor. You gotta speak up, guy.
I think, like I said, I had one. When we had our first screening, major screening for us in New York, a woman came up to me, and after we were in the restaurant or something, after the after party of the screening, she was writing for the New York Times, and she said, how's it feel to kill kids?
Right.
Then I had friends in acting school. I had friends that I know, people that just people I love, and they saw it and said, "You were in that movie." My acting teacher told me, "That's pretty good, but they'll never see how I'm going to be. They'll never see what a fine actor you are, truly, in this film." So it was kind of, okay, those were some of the questionable things, some things that didn't go so well. Then I was in picking up a guy at the Los Angeles airport when Scott and I was working for the same limousine company. And with my suit and tie, I said, been in LA for a little while, probably went behind Dawn the day. And this guy screamed my name, Ken Foree, Ken Foree, Ken Foree. I'm looking, and said, well, who the hell is this stuff on my head? Where's it coming from? And this guy's telling me, he's got a suit on, and saying, I'm your biggest fan, I'm your biggest fan. I said, what are you doing here? I said, what's your name? My name's Bob Fosse.
Get here.
And I said, oh, well, I'm picking him up. He said, what? And so, yeah, so it's, besides some things like that, I've worked consistently, pretty much throughout my career. And a lot of times it's people are there, food, directors, producers, they're there just to, or have me there because they're fans. And then now come, they saw from their kid, they saw them, they said, oh, Ken, we love you. Matter of fact, I'm doing one next week. I'm doing most of it for the Halloween series. And one of the guys, I'm the greatest fan. Grew up with you, better have you. So it's kind of like supported me in so many ways. It's made it a lot easier. I find that I've got people who love me, presidents, sheiks, people get power and influence, and I met a lot of them, and I'm surprised by it, quite frankly, because I'm a Midwestern kid that probably doesn't, think everybody's the same, and you're heartbroken and do your little thing, and don't take that kind of, you don't take those compliments, and you don't think that the heart, not what life really is about. But, being in this position, Ken Foree, Dawn of the Dead, and I told some people the other day, they named the planet after Star Trek recently. So, I mean, when these things happen to you, you have to, I guess, in some way, be that person. That person that people adore. And I love people who love me, so it's a great thing. I'm happy. I'm having a ball. I give the love, I feed off of it, I try to give it back as best I can. But basically, I'm from Indiana, Get out there and plow and get $5 for a week and shut up. Keep moving. But but it's been that kind of life, and it's been really wonderful.
I just remember one story because of what you were saying. It's when I don't think I ever told this story before, but when the movie first came out, it was in a Times Square theater on 47th and Broadway, and it had one of those mezzanines that you used to go up to. Yeah. So I would go like in the middle of the day sometimes and just sort of go and see what the audience was doing. So I'm sitting up in the mezzanine and the audience was full. It was full of people. And it's sort of at the beginning of the film when the guys are they find out that she's pregnant and what are we going to do with her? And she's in drag. And so the audience in front of me was like, lose the bitch. Kill the bitch, let her go, and I'm going, and I'm listening to all of it, and I'm going, wait, and she gets better, and they all turn around, and then they see me, and then they turn to the screen, and then they're back and forth. I think that was the most horrifying horror movie they ever said.
Please.
Yeah, but wait.
I think we're good.
Same thing happened with me. I went to the embassy on 63rd, the first time. I went there a couple of nights. They were stuck in behind them, watching the audience. So I get that's kind of crazy. But
No, I mean, nothing has been better than the audiences, and nothing has been better than the fans. I mean, the Museum of Modern Art, this was true, it was like 2 years ago when the 3D version came out, and the Museum of Modern Art had a series, an entire summer series in New York was the horror series, and they opened, which is incredible, and they opened the series with Dawn of the Dead, and the lines of people was sold out. And the curator of the museum says, you know, we're never going to see these people maybe again in the museum, but we're going to try to get them in. But George got them in, and they painted a screening. It was just incredible. I was there. You were there. It was great. It was great. Yeah.
I was so excited to see them here. And I didn't know to the end.
We've gotten a little long on time, but I want Scott to tell his story, and then we're going to wrap it up. Okay, guys?
Oh, I just had an anecdote that George. There was a special event in Los Angeles at the Academy of Education and Arts and Sciences, and George was invited to be a speaker on the state of horror in the film industry, and he was the speaker. That was the event. Right? So, who walks down? The point is, you never know who might be a horror fan. Who walks down the sidewalk, I'm smoking a cigarette with George, is George Lucas walks down the sidewalk and walks up to George and talks to him like he's a 17-year-old man. I swear to God, I'm a person. Goes, George, this is so cool. You're here, you're doing this. And I was just watching this up going, this is weird. No, it's like we still know. And the other thing I want to tell you is my grandmother wanted to come to me. I told her, no, you cannot come to this movie. She insisted. She was really tough. So she came to this screening we had in the Upper West Side. And she sat next to me when they blew the guy's head off. She grabbed my arm, she was not leaving him. I said, "Go." So I put her in a cab, and off she went, right? I said, I warned you. But she was proud of me. I said, well, you're going to hate him, so I warned you.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.